Who wants to have pork chops for lunch? Oh, yeah. Looks delicious. Every time I see that video, I think about that. I'm like, man, I love pork chops. My mom and dad raised pigs, and so we had a lot of the farm-grown pork chops, Well, anyways, sorry, I get on tangents. Here, forgot where I was. Where am I? Oh, yeah, my name is John. No, my name's not John. My name's Joe. I am John today. And I'm really excited to be here. I've been a part of Waterline Church for about a year or so. I think my year anniversary is this month, where we kind of had this relationship with Waterline Church where they were going to help us plant a church in Pendleton. And then July, we decided we're all going to do it together. And so we just took the name and the brand and every one of the cards, we just took them with us. And some of the people and some money with us. And we went and started a new church in Pendleton. It's been awesome. I think we have a picture. Yeah, there's my family. This is a physical representation of what we did. We took a leap, and we were suspended by wires there. That's not really. No, I'm just kidding. We really did. After about a dozen takes, we got it. We got the picture, and that's my family. That's a pretty good representation of who they are. They're pretty wild and wacky, Yeah, it's been an incredible ride. We have seen 10 people make faith commitments over the last 7 weeks. Yeah, it's really awesome. Really awesome. 7 people have said they made a commitment to Jesus. A couple of them for the first time ever in their life. The church is just filled with people that haven't ever been in church, ever. And so some of my teaching style, you'll see today that I'll explain a lot of everything, and I hope you're okay with that. I'm just going to explain everything because I do it every Sunday because you just never know what people know, I don't assume. And so part of doing all this, and we have, I should just acknowledge that how amazing it's been that Waterline Church, how much they have given up, and so that we could go do that. You guys have given up resources, money, people, sacrificed a lot of time to help us do that. Some of you volunteered. Some of you have been sharing our stuff on social media, and I hope you would still do that. If you have relationships with people in Madison County, if you have friends, family, coworkers, we would love to meet them. If you could invite them and tell them, we're there. And because I find that people, sometimes they just need an invitation, don't they? Sometimes they just need somebody to ask them. And so if you guys could help us out in that way, we would love it. I had a day off for the first time in a while. It's been a wild ride starting a church. It's like starting a business, or it's like, how else could I describe it? It's like literally spinning plates with every limb that you have and every finger you have, and you're just keeping it going all the time. And so I was off on Saturday, and somehow it came up. I was reading this article about how bad soda pop is for you. We call it pop from southern Indiana, pop. I'm from the Bloomington area. We call it pop down there. How bad pop is for you. And somehow it came up with my daughter. I said, Audrey, have you ever had a suicide soda? And she said, I don't know what that is, Dad. And I said, well, let me explain. It's when you, let me explain. So you take the cup and you get all the different flavors out of the self-serve, and then you drink it. I said, have you ever done that? And she said, well, just with 2 flavors, Coke and Sprite. And I was like, so you've never had a soda suicide? A suicide soda? I don't know how to say it. Suicide soda, suicide? And she said, no. And I said, I have failed you as a father. And, we're young parents. Dawn and I'm 34, and we had Patrick when we were 18 and 19. And so, we're growing up with them. And so I was just blown away. So we thought, as a treat to all of you to endure, I documented the whole thing. And so we're going to watch it, right?
All right, what are we getting ready to go do?
I'm not in the video yet.
Oh my gosh. This is our life. You want to start that over?
No, I'm just going to keep rolling it.
Mom,
Audrey,
it
what are
has
we
to be
doing?
authentic.
Yeah.
What are we doing then, Audrey?
Has to be.
What is suicide?
What are we doing?
Suicide.
Have you ever tried to soda suicide?
No,
Not like all of them,
no,
but some of them?
2 of them.
2 of them. Patrick,
What?
have you tried to soda suicide?
Yes, it's amazing.
I'm afraid I'm going to vomit.
Donna's heard stories about the vomit.
I
So
don't wanna
here we
vomit.
go. On our way. Here we go. With the soda suicide. Suicide soda. Soda suicide. Boom. We have arrived at our neighborhood speedway. Can't find the sign anywhere. There it is. Speedway. Doo-doo-doo. It's raining out here. So many flavors. The soda suicide.
Why is it orange on the bottom?
Because it's got a little bit of everything. Excuse me, have you ever tried a soda suicide? You've never tried it? It looks disgusting. Here we go. All right, so we are back home, and we have brought the suicides, and here we go. We're gonna try them out. We have one big one and one small one. So who's up first? Drink it. What does it taste like?
Good.
What did you put in it?
I put everything in. Mountain Dew, all the different flavors of Mountain Dew.
All right, Odd, you're up.
Oh gosh. I'm scared. Why is there so many flavors?
Soda.
I don't know. Right.
It's delicious. Wait. Yeah, maybe you should put on a muscle.
That's delicious. It's so good.
It's like uber sugar. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like all the sugars.
It just doesn't add up. It's so good. You just add all the flavors and it tastes so good. Can you guys do me a favor, though? I didn't ask my family's permission to film them. And so could you guys give them a hand? So if they're watching this, see, everybody loved it. Don't be embarrassed, kids. It doesn't add up. Like all these different flavors, and it tastes really good. I was really blown away. I think that I was thinking about how that we look at miracles as we walking through this series, and I was thinking about how like the expectations of all of everyone in my family. So my son, he was like, "It's delicious. I've tried it. It's good. Bank on it. This is what you can expect. It's going to be awesome." My daughter, she was like, I don't know about it. And then after she drank it, she was like, oh, it's... And then Dawn, she was like, well, I've tried it, but I've heard horror stories before, and I've heard it'll make you vomit, you know. And she's very honest. It'll make you puke. And I was just blown away at that. And I was thinking about how that we're looking through this series, and as we've been filling out these God will cards every week, you have one in your seat. We've been filling out these God will cards, thinking about the expectations that we have with miracles, thinking of how that we think that God can work like this, and God is going to work like this, and there's no way that God can do this because I'm not asking, and there's no way that it would work out like this situation. We have all these expectations. And I just want to kind of just throw this out here and just say it up front. Miracles don't add up. They don't add up. Sometimes we try to fit things in our realities and our expectations, but honestly, miracles don't add up. It doesn't make sense. And so today I want to explore that if we can together. Is that all right? We can explore this together and look at this. We are still in the Gospel of John. If you haven't figured it out after all these weeks, we're preaching right out of the book of John. In my context in Pendleton, I have a lot of friends that are new to church. They've never been to church, or they haven't been to church in years. So I explain just about everything. And so if it's all right, I'm going to explain a little bit. Like I said earlier, I'm going to explain a little bit today. From the book of John, what you should know is people way smarter than me have talked about this term, the synoptic gospels. And there's Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the first three, right? And those three, they all kind of talk in the same way, and they have the same narrative, and they kind of have the same goal. They're historical, and so they're kind of accounting the historical content, but they don't include the book of John in that. The book of John is kind of the rebel. Anybody a rebel in here? Whoa, yeah, there they are. Oh, yeah, they're coming out. I know some of you are like, oh, I don't know. Oh, come on. Well, you guys can have confidence today. We are preaching out of the book of John, the rebel gospel today. So the book of John, too, is really important because where it's different from the other gospels, this author was trying to convince people to believe. And that's why it's filled with so many miracles, because they want the reader to understand that this Jesus was amazing what he was doing. They actually have a bend, and they're trying to persuade people to believe who Jesus is. So as you go through that, keep that in mind when we're reading the scripture. So it starts out in chapter 6, verse 5. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, "It will take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up, "Here's a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far will they go among so many?" So Jesus said, "Well, have the people sit down." And there was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 people were there, about 5,000 minute accounts. And so we look at that passage. Before that, Jesus had come from the Sea of Galilee, and he was doing all these miraculous things, and all these people were hearing about the things that Jesus was doing. And so he's in this place, and there's this huge crowd. Have you guys ever been in a big crowd? You guys ever been to like the Indy 500? Or have you ever been to the concerts at Ruoff? Or have you ever been to a Black Friday sale? Or have you ever been to the $2 Tuesday at the Indiana State Fair? Woohoo! That's awful. It's not a woohoo, actually. I went last year, and I'll never go back. Anyways, rabbit trail, sorry. It's a huge crowd, shoulder to shoulders, people everywhere. And they've been hearing Jesus preach and teach, and they were seeing him do all these crazy, miraculous things, and now everybody's hungry. And some people have traveled a long ways. Like we talked about a couple weeks ago, the man from Capernaum, right? He had traveled like 20 miles, which is like from my house, it's to IKEA. It's a long ways. And so like they're hungry now, and they're out here and they're guests, and they didn't want to leave. And so this problem presents itself. The people, I think, they kind of represent this chaos and problems. And they have all these problems, but it's kind of like that in life. Looking at what seemed to be this impossible situation, right? They're measuring, they're analyzing, the disciples, they're measuring, they're analyzing, they're planning, they're preparing. The entire passage is about measurements. You look through, there's measurements throughout it. They took these, there's all these different measurements, 2 fish and 5 loaves. There was 5,000 people, all these measurements. Don't we measure things a lot? That's kind of how we live our life, right? We measure success. We measure how many minutes. And we made this list. Me and some of my friends, we made this list, and I find that we grab on and we measure things, right? We grab onto something and then we measure it. Here's a couple of things maybe you can relate. My phone battery life, I measure that often. or when it's out or about to be out, go to that low battery mode, airport mode. Number of hours it takes to binge watch the March Madness or Marie Kondo while you clean your house, right? How long your phone cord needs to be to reach your bedside. Have you ever, yeah, I had to measure that out. Got to have that so I can, hit snooze like 50,000 times on that alarm that I have set every morning. How long it'll take, my wife, how long it'll take for your straightener to heat up, right? You're just timing it. All right, I got some time here, and I got to get ready, and then I got my commute. How many likes we get on social media? How many people viewed our story on Instagram? How many more minutes of exercising we have left till we're finally there? How many calories I'll have left after I eat this really awesome chocolate cake from Portillo's, right? Oh, maybe that was just me. How much time you have to get your homework done, right? Some of you guys are in school. How much time you have to get. We measure everything, don't we? We measure everything. But even more, I think, probably deeper than that, the things that we measure. We measure, we grab onto and we overanalyze. We grab on to planning. We grab on to worry. We measure out the different outcomes that could happen, and so then we end up worrying about what could happen. We grab onto our career struggles. We look at how long it's going to take to finish this degree. And if I don't finish it by this time, right? We grab onto relationships. This person did this to me, so it could possibly happen. In all these past relationships, it happened before, so I bet it could happen again. We grab onto diagnosis. The doctor said I have this long, or this could happen, or this could happen, or the WebMD said this happened. Don't go to WebMD. The WebMD said this could happen. It'll create anxiety. We grab onto our marriage. We do things so that we can please the other person when it's probably not. We don't speak up, or we speak up too much. We're too critical. We grab onto marriage. We grab onto our kids. We grab onto finances. We grab on all by ourselves. And all of a sudden, it's as if this problem becomes so big and our God becomes so small that the problem is what's in complete control. Have you ever been there? And we find ourselves completely exhausted. We find ourselves completely done, completely empty. And people are all around us. They're asking and they're looking. And you're even thinking to yourself, am I okay? I'm done. I'm barely holding together. Have you ever been there? We grab on. But here's the thing. The story doesn't end there. So then in verse 11 it says, Jesus then took the loaves. He gave thanks, distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He gave them as much as they wanted. It was kind of like a Jesus buffet. I love a buffet. He did the same with the fish. When they had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted. So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. So this little boy comes along, and he's got this sack lunch, right? Waterline lunch. Whoop. He's got this little sack lunch. And in it, he's got 5 loaves of bread. I don't know how 5 loaves would fit in my little bag, but just imagine with me. He's got 5 loaves of bread, and he's got 2 fish. And 2 of Jesus' friends are freaking out. And this little boy comes up, and he says, take mine. This little boy gave up all that he had, which wasn't much. But then God took this, and he done something incredible. The guys that were looking, they were still holding on to the chaos and the crowd and the problems. Right? They were holding on to all the things that they had remembered that were happening around them, and they had lost their focus on the one that they believed who could do amazing things. They'd seen him do so many things. They'd seen him physically with their eyes do miracles. It's accounted for in this book many times before, but they had forgotten all of that. They were still holding on to the chaos and the crowd and the problem. I don't know if you guys are like that, but I am. Where there's times where I forget, and there's times where I'm still holding on to the chaos in my life, the crowd, the haters, the people that are saying you can't do it, you won't do it, you're not able to do it. You're not enough. Maybe that's just the voice inside my head that's saying that. And then the problems, the obstacles that are really there. And we grab hold of that. And we try to figure a way out by ourselves rather than leaning into this Jesus. Analyzing. It doesn't add up. I'm not good enough. I don't have enough. It's not going to work. I'm too tired to think about it anymore. There's not enough time. There's not enough money. There's not enough space. I can't do it. But there's good news. There's great news. There's life-changing news. That we serve the same Jesus that was in this gospel, that is in this book. And this same Jesus is the same Jesus that calmed the chaos there. He wants to calm the chaos inside of you. This same Jesus that took care of the crowd is the same one who knows exactly what you need. This same Jesus is the same Jesus who saw the problem and was willing to use a little boy who was willing to give up his sack lunch so that you could have everything that you need. This same God who's willing to use you right where you are. This same Jesus is the same Jesus today. Miracles don't work because things add up. You have to understand it. Miracles don't work because things add up. Miracles work when we're willing to give it up. Ooh, can I say that again? Ooh, let me say it again. Miracles don't work because things add up in your life. They work because you're willing to give it up. The miracle happened because this boy said, "Here, take what I have." When is the last time that you gave it up? It's so countercultural. I was telling my wife about this, that when our society is always like, just do it. And it's always like, you can do it and win and push and push and push and push. And so this idea of surrender is associated with weakness and is associated with somebody that's less. But I'm telling you, when you give it up, you get everything. It may not be in the way that you expected. It may not be in the expectations that you laid out, the things that people have told you, the things that you wanted. But when you give it up, God shows up. What would it look like if we said, "God, take my marriage and do a miracle"? What would it look like if we said, "God, take my hurts and do a miracle"? God, what would it look like if you said, "God, take this pain that someone gave to me so many times over and over and over and over"? What would it look like if you said, "God, take that pain and do a miracle"? What would it look like if you said, "God, take my anxiety and calm me, do a miracle there"? What would it look like if you said, "God, take my analyzing, God, take my planning, God, take my kids, take my career, take my finances, take all of me"? What would it look like? Maybe you've never said this, but what would it look like if you said, "God, take me"? I've never given you all of these things. I've given you a few of these things. I've said, "Oh God, please help me," when I'm almost in an accident. Do a miracle in me. I remember it like it was yesterday. I feel like it wasn't that long ago, but I guess it was, and time is relative. But my daughter, when she was about 4 years old, I used to take her to work with me. I think we have a picture. Oh my gosh. She still makes that face. Where's time gone? How did she grow up so fast? I think there's another one. Look at that. Doesn't that melt your heart? Oh. She's so old now. She's like 12 going on 25, and I feel old. Even though I'm not old, I feel old because they're growing up so fast. But I remember it was like it was yesterday. I used to, at my first position in a church, I would take her every other day to the office with me because I didn't have a solid babysitter. And I would take her with me, and I had this little 1989 black Dodge Dakota extended cab truck. And I had the car seat in the back, And I remember it was like a wrestling match trying to get her into that, She was just so excited and so full of energy. But I would get her into it, and she was so excited. And, she'd put her hands up in the air as I was putting the car seat down around her, And I remember her saying, I would say to her, I said, Audrey, do you know where we're going? And she would say, nope. Every time. And I thought, man, this kid, she must have got her brains from me. She doesn't know where we're going. We go to the same place every time. But I thought about that a lot. I've been thinking about it over this series. These miracles. And the faith it takes to believe that God will do a miracle. And I got to confess to you, this is a really hard subject. I don't understand why we're so surprised when God does something amazing in our life. Why is it so uncommon to see God do a miracle? But I would say to her, Audrey, do you know where we're going? And she would say, nope. And the reason why is because she absolutely loved her dad. She trusted her dad. There was no doubt in her mind that we were going to go somewhere fun. There was no fear. She had given up all control to her dad because she loved and she trusted him. And that little statement of nope displayed so much faith. And I thought, first I thought how thankful it was. I had a daughter that loved me so much. Then I thought, wow, I want faith like that. Wow, I want to be able to trust my Father that way. I say that I love this God. I say that, but what things am I holding on to? What things am I not willing to give up? I want a faith like that says, I trust you. I love you. Did you guys catch in that passage? It's huge. Back in verse 12, I think it is. We have it here. It says, when they had all they had to eat, he said to his disciples, gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted. Did you catch that? Let nothing be wasted. With Jesus, nothing's wasted. Your pain, your anxiety, your depression, your hurts, your fears, if you would give those things up, he will take it and he will do a miracle in your life. There's no question about it. He will do a miracle in your life. It may not be in the way that you planned. It may not be the way that you expect it, but he will work in your life. Would you guys stand to your feet with me? We've been working on these God will cards. We had these God will cards, and we've been asking people to fill it out in Pendleton, and I think you guys have been doing it here too, as I can see. You've been doing it very well. A couple weeks ago, we asked people, last week we asked them to write, I will statements. I will do this. And today I'm just asking, what will you give up? And maybe it's this thing that you've already written down, but you're still like holding it here, and instead of like the little boy that was like, just take it. I believe that you can do something great with it. You're going, well, I don't know. I don't know. Miracles happen because we give up something. You have to give up this thing that you've been holding on. Maybe you've been holding on to it for years. Maybe you've been holding on to it, and it's a recent thing. Maybe you've been holding on to it because you're so afraid. Maybe you've been holding on to it because you just can't deal with it. Maybe you've been holding on to it for whatever reason. Give it up and let God work. So what I challenge you to do is maybe you need to write on these cards again. And if you're like me, I've been writing, I've been crossing out, and then I've been adding back. But give it to him. We have cards, extra cards, if you don't have a card in your seat. Maybe you wrote it once. Maybe you need to write it again. But fill out the card and then tape it here. And this is huge. This is a physical representation of you giving it up, and then you leave it there. So I'm asking you this morning, don't keep carrying this thing, but give it up and let God do a miracle in your life. Maybe you've never allowed him to do a miracle in you, and you've never said, Jesus, I give you my all. And you'd like to make a commitment to him today. There's a connect card in your seat. Indicate that on there. Let me pray for you. God, right now, I'm so thankful for everything that you've done in us. I'm so thankful for the way that you continue to work around us, even when we can't see. Lord, right now, I pray for courage across this group of people that are listening, whether online or here in this place, and I pray that you would give us courage to give up the thing that we've been holding on to so tightly. God, it doesn't add up why you would do these miracles in our life or how you do them, but I know that they work when we give up, and we can see it in your word that when we give it up, you show up. And God, I just pray that you would give us courage to do that. Don't go another day. Don't go another moment without giving up. God, I pray that you would speak into our life and create conviction for us that we would do that. It's in your name that we pray over and over. Amen. Feel free to fill out your card, bring them up here and tape them up. We're going to sing.